The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. New York Met Baseball, past, present, and future. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and both co-hosts are present and accounted for, Marty Rose and Robert Cole. How you guys doing this evening?
Very well, Ralph. Doing good, Ralph.
Good. And Robert. This is going well. We missed you last week, Marty, and glad you're back and all is well this week because we have a lot to celebrate. I have two things in particular to celebrate, in particular when it comes to the Mets this week. One, they signed Vargas, and it's another day in the life of the Mets without Tebow on the 40-man roster. Now, just that in itself, we should be grateful. Sandy seems to be selling tickets because for his minor league affiliates, because he came out with a statement that really didn't ring true. This kid hasn't gotten out of A-ball, and he hit like 220 last year. Little bit of power. He's no real youngster. He's been, he must be 24, 25 at this point. Sandy says he's going to play in the majors someday. I think he's just hyping it to sell tickets. What do you guys think? Start with Robert Cole.
Well, what I think he was doing today was paving the way if things go in the tank early this year. I think he was paving the way that they will bring Tebow up at the end of this year just to try to fill seats. If they're doing well, I don't think we'll see Tebow, but I think he was just paving the way that, if they go in the tank again, we'll probably see Tebow.
If they're just trying to fill seats, aren't there some former Brooklyn Dodgers that they could bring back, and we can go full cycle and full circle, and we could all rest in peace. 1962. That's exactly how they looked at it back then, and it really wasn't such a bad idea. I wonder how it would have been had an Alvin Dark or a Leo DeRocher would have managed the team back then, and maybe a younger general manager. They wouldn't. I don't think they would have been as bad initially. They couldn't have been as bad initially, but I don't think they would have built as quickly as they did. That's just off the top of my head. It was brutal the first 2 years to watch him on the field.
And ironically, today is the anniversary of their very first spring training practice in 1962.
Whoa. The picture that comes to mind with that one in my mind is this TV show that had Casey introducing the entire lineup. And I think somewhere it's on YouTube where he can't remember Gus Bell's name, and he goes, and he's got 9 kids, and yes, now it rings a bell, Gus Bell. Those were, it's hard to believe we were kids. We were 14, 15 years old,
yep.
And it's that many years ago. 60 years since your Dodgers, kinda, and my Giants moved to San Francisco. 60 years.
Yep.
Since Mert and I were getting on the bus at age 10 to go to the Y in Flushing from Jackson Heights, the Q66.
There you go.
Yeah.
It is.
So let's talk about what we have to celebrate. Do you ever think that Tebow would make the majors legitimately if they weren't just trying to put butts in the seats? Mert?
No, I don't think so. First of all, he is 30 years old already, Ralph. You know. Oh,
he is 30, not 25.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it might even be 31. But yeah, he's. I think if he ever does make it, I mean, I would not give up a 40-man roster spot.
That's what I mean. How do you get him up just to get use out of him? But that, you'd have to wait till spring training, or I don't know. Maybe
if he ever had a chance. I mean, I know Sandy said someday he might play in the major leagues. That's fine, but it's not going to be with the Mets. I really don't think so. They love him here in Florida. Let's say the Marlins, who like the over-under is 64.5 this year. Let's say, they're having the terrible year that they're expected to have, and they're looking for somebody to bring people in because there's a lot of fans down in South Florida that are very upset about what's going on with that team now, and the only way they're going to bring people in is to have some sort of novelty act, and that's pretty much what he is, and they do love him in Florida. That's for sure. So, if Tampa Bay, if the Marlins wanted to trade for him or whatever, I think that might be the only way he'd ever make it to the major leagues. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think it would be very Bush of the Mets to give up a 40-man roster spot just to fill a few seats in September. That's all.
What they would be doing, Ralph, is they don't have the deepest farm system right now. Late in the season, they'd be, selling guys to other teams. They'd have an open spot. They would bring them up. At the end of the season, they would send them back down again. They're not going to, tie up that spot, during the Rule 5 draft or anything. So, me personally, like I said on the site today, I have no problem with it as long as the team was well out of the pennant race. Fine, bring him up and let the fans have something to cheer about. But certainly not at the expense of someone else's spot, especially if they're in the pennant race or something like that.
Yeah, I hearken back to the days of Michael Jordan playing Double-A ball with the White Sox. And I don't know if it's the same situation, but the White Sox, Double-A's at-bats at Double-A are precious. So whether or not he curtailed someone else's career at the expense of his joyride and the publicity that went with it, we may never know. But speaking of that, rest in peace, Tito Francona, Terry Francona's dad. Terry managed Michael Jordan on that White Sox Double-A team, and Tito was he was a mainstay when we were growing up. Very solid with the Cardinals, and he passed away this week. So rest in peace, Tito Francona. Let's talk about Vargas. Recent signings. Start with you, Marty. We talked a little off air. What does this mean for the Mets in terms of solidifying their pitching staff?
They got a guy here who's definitely going to give them innings. That's for sure. Which you can only count on DeGrom and maybe Syndergaard this year to give you a decent amount of innings. He had a bad second half last year, but people are saying that that's because the previous year he had Tommy John surgery, but he still won 18 games. So they never did replace the 14 wins a year that they were getting from Bartolo. So I think this is a guy that will probably be in the rotation all year. Something that we have not seen from Matz, Harvey, Wheeler, or Syndergaard. So,
right. Which brings us to Wheeler bitching and complaining at the prospect of going to the bullpen. Granted, his rehab has not been pleasant. What he's doing requires a shot in his stomach every day to increase his bone density or this, that, or the other thing, some very painful rehab. But he's been with us 3 years, and really hasn't been out there very much in those 3 years. So I thought his complaining was very unlike, oh, wow, this solidifies the team. This gives us the wins that we missed with Bartolo. I could get a chance to come back slowly in the bullpen if need be. I'm all for it.
He was asked about that. He was asked about that like right after the transaction went down. And he may not have even heard about it when they asked him that question. So
it might have shocked him, in other words.
I think so. I that could have been the case. Could have very well been the case. But he's got a lot to prove, so he just might as well shut up and pitch,
Absolutely, and be lucky he's got, the chance to do it. He's picked up, although he's been on the DL, you still pick up pension time.
Yes.
To say nothing of multi-million-dollar contracts that would astound Joe DiMaggio. Like, I think I mentioned how anytime any of these guys sign, Joe DiMaggio spins around in his grave a little bit.
And Wheeler won his arbitration. I'm shocked. How could he win an arbitration? The guy hasn't been on the mound. I can't believe he won his arbitration. It's ridiculous. Honestly,
don't know what these guys go by, what these arbitrators go by, but there's all kinds of stories about the inadequacies. These guys just don't know baseball.
Probably
but
not.
On the other hand, who knows what the market is, what people are offering, and he did show a hell of an upside before he got hurt. Remember, they gave up Beltran for him. Right. Beltran had something left. He helped the Giants. So, who knows? Robert, your thoughts on Vargas, on Wheeler?
Well, Vargas is definitely going to help him. He pitched almost 180 innings last year, and that would have been second on the Mets staff, behind DeGrom. None of the other guys pitched more than 80 innings, so he's definitely going to help him there. Matz doesn't have to be rushed back, from his surgery. They can take it a little easier with Wheeler, especially early in the year. You really only need 4 starters. And I think Vargas will probably slot into one of those first 4 slots. So I think it was a great trade. I mean, I was thinking they were going to go in a different direction for the starting spot. We were talking about Alex Cobb and Lance Lynn, but this is perfect. As Marty said, he's
better than either of those two, and I would have been happy with either of those two.
Yep.
So I was kind of elated from that standpoint. Here's a name we haven't talked about much. I think we mentioned it a little bit last week, and that's Harvey. We talk about Wheeler, we talk about Matz, we talk about Syndergaard. it's amazing that it's come to the point where Harvey is just almost an afterthought when we're talking about the staff.
But isn't that a great afterthought? I mean, if this guy is anything near what he was before, it just changes the dynamics of that whole staff.
Well, at that point with Vargas and maybe Matt's coming back later in the season, easing his way into it, whoa, provided Syndergaard stays healthy, of course. And I tend to think, I said this last year, I tend to think things health-wise will be better if for no other reason the law of averages, like I said last year, didn't really happen. What happened last year defied the law of averages, but this year they did something proactively and shook up the entire training staff with a change that was, I thought, was long needed, because sometimes it isn't necessarily just numbers. They can be injuries can be prevented. Marty was talking about Cespedes being hydrated now. He's on some sort of hydration program.
He also said he's going to do yoga. That was out there today. He's going to do yoga. Yeah. So yoga instead of golf. So
right, and drive into spring training in the automobiles, in the Lamborghinis and what have you. Let them do it, but don't pull a hamstring every 2 weeks. That's all I ask. Now, I'm asking you guys, what with Bruce signing, Gonzalez signing, Frazier signing, brings Cabrera over to second and what have you. What else did they do? Now Vargas signs, guys getting healthy. Are you ready to give the Wilpons and Alderson a pass like we did, Marty, a couple of years ago when they came up with the Bucks to sign to keep Cespedes?
Mm-hmm.
I remember giving, at least in my head, giving Wilpon and his son and Sandy a pass. Are you guys ready to give these guys a pass for at least setting it up where they should be able to compete and be in contention for at least a wild card spot? Start with you, Robert.
I'd give Sandy a pass. I think Sandy's done a tremendous job with the allowance that he's been given. So, I mean, I definitely give Sandy a passing grade. I don't know about the Wilpons. I mean, everything broke right this year as far as the very slow free agent market and stuff like that. I don't know whether they would have been able to get Bruce and Frazier in a very active market as in past years. I just think Sandy played it very, very smart this year.
Okay. Anything to add to that, Marty?
No, I agree. Sandy did very well. Basically because nobody was getting huge money. They got guys at a reasonable cost that was in their budget, and that nobody was getting the real mega bucks this year, and there's still a lot of guys out there, and we're almost up to the last week of February, so I'll never give the Wilpons a pass on anything, but I think Sandy did a good job compared to what the other teams have done. So, yeah.
Good. Hey, guys, let's take a moment to talk about Buddy Harrelson, who was, without a doubt, if not the best shortstop the Mets ever had. Reyes in his prime, probably had more range, this, that, and the other. I mean, he was a winner, 69, 73. Buddy Harrelson, the three of us are about the same age. He's no more than 2-3 years older than us. He's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and I can't think of a worse blow to the man and what people go through in life. So special shout out to him. Can't help but think what a hideous disease. On a somewhat positive note, there was an ABC story on Nightline about how they have discovered a vaccine that seems to help reduce the plaque that causes Alzheimer's disease somehow.
Slow the process a little, yeah.
Right, in mice. And they're hoping it transcends to people. It's about ready for some blind tests or whatever. But that's the first I've ever heard of anything of a positive nature. Yeah. I don't know if having something to think about like we do with sports, if that, gives our brains exercise to prevent it. I don't know, but if faced with it, I would not be handling it quite as courageously as Buddy Harrelson has been doing. He goes to support groups and, kind of makes light of it a little bit and seems to be doing all right. But that's
a big shout out. He's one of the most popular Mets ever. So
yeah, I can't think of anybody that had a bad word to say about him, especially with the Pete Rose thing. Where,
right.
Rose was not a tall guy, but he was a big guy, and Harrelson was not a little guy. He was a tiny guy. He was slight of build, and that sparked the Mets as far as I remember. So yeah, big shout out to the guy. Any memories, Robert Cole, of Buddy Harrelson?
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, I remember when he first came up, sitting at home, late at night with the transistor radio and listening to games and, thinking that maybe, the Mets finally had a genuine shortstop. He was probably, I guess, the first good homegrown Met. I'm not sure if he was first or Cleon Jones was first, but he was one of the first homegrown Mets.
Right. I think Cleon might have come a few years before. He came up really early, did Cleon. And Cranepool might have been the actual first.
Cranepool was, but as far as somebody, Cranepool basically came right out of high school, and
right,
with a couple of shortstops in the minors back and forth. But
Roy McMillan was the shortstop when Harrelson came up, and I remember him really helping Harrelson, tutoring him and what have you, and until he took his job, and that was pretty cool.
He started that triple play against the Giants in the 23-inning game also. Roy McMillan.
Harrelson did. Oh.
Roy McMillan.
Roy McMillan, yeah.
Oh, McMillan.
Me and the Bear were at that game. In the 14th inning of the second game, I'm saying, oh, please, I want to go home, But no. Our friend Lenny.
You and I were at a triple overtime.
I'm staying till the end. I got to see my Giants. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
And we stayed till the end. Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Did you ever go to Philly with the Bear and Strelitz?
No, I didn't.
They were such fanatical Giant fans. They'd get on a train and go down to Philadelphia and catch them there. Did you, Robert Cole?
Yes, we my father and I went a couple of times to see the Dodgers the first couple of years.
Did you ever have thoughts after when the Dodgers left of not following them? I might have asked you that before, of following somebody else or rooting for somebody else, not just following them.
Well, at 10 years of age when they moved, it was like, they're still my team. And then, when the Mets came, year by year, they became less and less my team. Now they're just another team.
Okay. But you still have the affinity for the Brooklyn Dodgers, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you recommended a book on Facebook by Red Barber talking about when Jackie came up.
Yep, 1947, the year all hell broke loose in baseball.
And you said you read it for the third time. So Red Barber was a very fascinating guy. He was from the Deep South, and he himself, along with those other players like Bobby Bragan and Hugh Higbee and all those guys, had to make a decision based on their, let's just say, ignorance. And could ignorant people come around and change? Bobby Bragan was one guy that came around and changed. People don't realize that Red Barber almost quit. He was faced with a dilemma. And
well, he writes that in this book, in the beginning of the book. He said Branch Rickey called him into his office, told him what he was going to do. He went home that night, spoke to his wife, said, I think I'm going to have to quit. She said, Red, let's have a couple of drinks and think about it. So I guess they got blitzed that night, and then the next morning he thought about it and stayed on.
Whoa. Well, that's very popular. Baseball's a drinking game. What can you say? And he did stay on, and he came to, as Bobby Bragan did, come to see that his initial thinking was skewed. He got to know Jackie. Bobby Bragan, who initially wanted to sign that petition, became a manager later on, but a minor league coach who helped get Maury Wills to the majors. Maury Wills had been floundering. Bobby Bragan took him under his wing in Spokane, taught him how to switch hit, taught him how to bunt or whatever, this, that, and the other thing. And the rest is history. He had a solid career. So Bobby Bragan, who couldn't stand the thought of being in the same locker room as a black man, came around and became a human being. So you can't blame it on the times you live in. These people lived, well, it was the sign of the times, this, that, and the other thing, when there were people that could transcend those times. People like Red Barber and Bobby Bragan. What else did you get from that book, 47 by Red Barber, that stands out in your mind?
Oh, just the tremendous pressure and stress that Jackie was under. I mean, it's amazing that he made it through without having a nervous breakdown. Although it was said that a couple times he was close to that, with all the abuse and stuff that was heaped on him. The year of 47 was just a tremendous baseball year, and it was a great year for the Dodgers. And, of course, it was also the year that I was born, so it made it an even better year. But
there you go. That's talking about that in baseball annals, Robert.
Yes.
The year of 47. It was sometimes they go Jackie and Robert, and sometimes they go Robert and Jackie. But
my birthday was the day right after, one day later after
April
Jackie's
16th?
debut.
April 16th, Marty?
Me and Kareem. Same day.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you're in April, right? 6 months. I'm in November of 46. You're in 47.
Jackie Robinson debuted on the 15th, and I debuted on the 16th.
Right. Kind of cool. Well, Babe Ruth died in French Hospital in New York. I was born in French Hospital in New York.
All right.
So
you see, you and the Babe have something in common.
Oh, yeah, a lot in common. Oh. An awful lot. They used to call me the Bambino. Marty remembers, huh? Maybe not. Maybe maybe that was a dream. Who knows? But probably now that I think about it, it couldn't have been real. The Bambino, indeed. It was a good week so far. They've been in camp, pitches and catches, for 3 or 4 days. No injuries. I'm beginning to look at the bright side of things. The one really glaring thing in their everyday lineup to look at is catcher. I was disappointed they didn't sign Lucroy, but if I had my druthers, Vargas is a much better sign if they could only sign one. And Pilecki, who knows? He may be slow to develop. I don't think Diarno has an arm for it. I just don't. And he's so damn injury prone. But we'll see. You got the kid Pina coming along, who had a good instructional league. With these two guys, you may not have to rush them. And let's just say, pardon me?
Nito.
I know, I have a good memory for names, but it's real short. Yes, Nito. I'm still calling Cespedes Canseco sometimes in my sleep. So you got to know that it's happy time 24/7. In any event, I give them now going into full spring training. I think they play their first game next Friday, their first exhibition game.
Yeah, that's coming up Friday.
I give them a legitimate chance of being a contender if they stay healthy. And
you know what their over-under is? You know what their over-under is?
Let me guess. They'll probably go 86.
80.5. Oh, that's under 500.
Yes,
that's what their over-under is.
I'll be on the Vegas.
Yeah. So I think they got to do better than that. Gee,
they have to. No question. All the little intangibles, like I say, the new training staff. I like what Callaway has to say. I don't think one of you said something about they could get by with 4 pitchers early on. I don't think he'll go to that. I think he'll try to stretch it out as much as he can with the rotation, especially early on.
We'll see how these guys do, I mean,
we'll see.
Montero looked better last year. You still don't know about Lugo or Gazelman.
I think Gazelman can be. He's had a history of being a winner, and he wasn't blaming anything on arm problems. So that I think you got a new pitching coach.
I think he'd be a good long man, rather than a starter.
Right.
Be out there in the bullpen.
Yeah.
Because, it's just my opinion, but they got too many guys that unless they trade somebody, if everybody's healthy going into the year.
Zellman would be better out of the bullpen than Lugo, so that's probably the way they would go.
Mm-hmm. Probably so.
How about Montero?
Well,
see what he does in the spring.
Yeah.
He looked pretty good last year. I mean, better than he had last year, for sure. Made some progress.
Now, one other thing before we close, Callaway's talking about a situational bullpen without a clear closer. Is he just trying to light a fire under Familia's butt, or is he serious? Or is you think it's a good idea to have undefined roles and maybe bring him in the seventh with the game on the line and defy what has become tradition? How do you guys feel, Robert?
I myself like that. I think it's a good way to go, and I think a lot of the teams are going to start going that way. My only question is, how is Familia going to take it? You may lose him. I don't know, because some of these guys get really, into that role, and they expect that, and even their agents, beat it into them that you're a closer.
Oh yeah, and it saves as a big part of the negotiating process with these guys. It's like the DH in the sense that you got to have the power numbers as a DH, and you have to be a closer. But would baseball be better off if they went back to situational relief pitching, matchups, this, that, and the other thing? Who's going good, who's not going good, keeps the players on edge a little bit, but should they be controlled by the agent talking in their ear, you need to have a role, this, that, and the other thing? Could it be good for competition?
And these guys got to be able to warm up quicker, too. Like when you're Familia and you're pitching in the ninth, you start your routine and, in the eighth, and you start your stretching, and you do whatever you do to get ready. If there's something going on in the seventh inning with two men on, and the manager's thinking, we need our best guy in there right now to cut this off. Can he warm up in like 3 minutes or 4 minutes to come in again?
That's a very good
without
point.
Going through his whole routine.
Right.
Have to find
Some guys can only warm up once, and then they're shot. They don't have the rubber arm. You can't keep bringing them up and sitting them down too. So
you heard
that comes from knowing your pitching staff. Two new, actually, they're both pitching coaches, Island and Callaway. So a lot of adjusting and.
You heard this term that Callaway used last week about getting pitchers up and sitting them down and getting them up and sitting them down. Did you hear the term he used?
No.
Dry humping.
Okay.
Apparently, that term is well known in the major leagues. He used that on television in an interview on SNY, and they were talking about it on the radio. At first everybody's shocked. What did he say? Did he really say that? Apparently, they use that term a lot, and that's what it means. Getting relievers up, sitting them down, getting them up, sitting them down.
Right.
He's not into that. He doesn't believe in that. So. Too
bad he expressed it as a CYO father and son thing, but that's all right. It's a poor choice, but he'll look back and say, I'm new at this. I was a pitching coach last year in a small town. Now I'm in a big thing. I'll choose my words more carefully. And to the Boy Scouts out there, hey, what can I tell you? Meet the Mets, greet the Mets. Okay. Good show, guys. All I care about in spring training, I don't care how many wins, I don't care, just stay
healthy.
Healthy. How about that?
Definitely.
Yeah. So here's to spring and hopes, springtime hopes, and nothing could be finer. Enjoy, guys. Thank you again. Robert Cole, Marty Rose, I'm Ralph Tyko, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, New York Met Baseball, past, present, future. Adios, everybody.
Good night.